What is up, geeks and geekettes? It's another edition of the Countdown City Geekcast. My name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me is my co-host, Retro Ray, and we got a very special guest for you. He is the CEO of Starlight Runner Entertainment. He's got a plethora of fascinating stories and projects. He's been helpful along with every single major movie studio and franchise you've known and heard of, and he is with us today. Please welcome Jeff Gomez. Jeff, how are you, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic, fantastic. Thanks for joining us. You, sir, are a legend. We were going through, Ray and I, some of the things you've done and you've been a part of, and it's just mind blowing. And I feel like you're living the dream because you grew up being passionate about entertainment and you had these franchises that you watched and you loved. And not only did you get to work on some of those franchises, but you took that passion and you've been able to expand it across multiple other franchises, and you've had your hand in video games and movies and comic books, and it feels like you're just living every nerd and geek like us's dream. And so we're going to ask you about some of your adventures and your tales, and talk to folks about what else you got working on. And so thank you first and foremost for joining us today. And I think, Ray, we're going to get started on your humble beginnings and where your first passion started from. So, Ray, why don't you take it away, man?
So, okay, I already know, you kind of started what we talked before the interview started. Where you fell in love with, watching Ultraman as a kid. Now, it started your passion for that stuff started then. Um Looking back now, do you feel that you would be at this point in your career or life in general where you got to work with the people who created and developed Ultraman?
Dude, no. No. I mean, a kid could dream,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
listen to me. Every day I open my eyes and go, wow, wow. I get to do this, and look, it's not always a bed of roses, but it's beyond any dream that I could have dreamt. Now that doesn't mean I didn't start thinking about it when I was very young, you know, but managing to surpass those expectations, managing to really truly be engaged at this level is a blessing, and I am astounded by it.
Wow.
And Jeff, Ultraman was really sort of the seed that started it all for you. Do you probably? I know this is like asking you a crazy question, but do you remember what episode or what was it about Ultraman that like really got you hooked? Or do you remember like how you felt the first time that you actually saw him grow and fight a kaiju on the TV screen?
It's now with all lives there is a little bit of complexity, right?
Sure.
So there is so I had many kind of iconic characters that led me down this road.
Mm.
One of the earliest was Godzilla, and dinosaurs in general, but Godzilla was a big one, and so discovering Ultraman happened because when you're in the early 1970s, Godzilla only came around once in a long time, right? You did not have media at your fingertips.
Yeah.
You had to scour this thing called the TV guide, right? And to look at what was going on in terms of what every week, page by page, is there going to be a giant monster movie?
Yep.
You know, and what's funny is I didn't like bloody, nasty horror films and so forth. So I
Okay.
had to be careful. um, but then when I would find it, I would fold the page on the TV guide and just wait, just wait till that day came, and there it would be. So Ultraman happened when I was in Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican, Ray, and my father lived in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, and I didn't speak the language when I visited him. I lived in New York City when I was a kid. I was bored. I didn't like the heat. I didn't like the bugs. I didn't like, you know, the sports. They loved basketball and stuff like that. And I was like, what am I doing here? Um, but I knew that every day after school for the kids, because their semester ran differently from mine. So at
Hmm.
3:30, the muñequitos started, the cartoon shows.
Yeah.
Um, so I would, wander in and out of the room, checking out the cartoons. They were in Spanish, so I couldn't really follow the stories. And one day, out of the corner of my eye, a huge robot was battling this giant silver dude with a crest at the top of his head, and it made this noise, and so forth. And I was like,
Yeah.
"What is that?" And so I was looking, and it was like I was dreaming, man, because I had never seen anything like that before. I'd never heard of Ultra 7, Ultra Siete. And so I'm riveted. And that robot was King Joe, and he was scary to me, and so I was hoping Ultra 7 would kick his butt. And they battled around like an aircraft carrier or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just astounding. And I then spent a lot of time trying to figure out if this thing would only happen once in a lifetime, or whether it was part of something else, because it ended pretty soon after I got there.
Yeah.
Big climactic battle. And little by little, I realized that this was a series, and that every week there would be a Godzilla-like monster that Ultra 7 would have to fight. Absolutely mind-blowing. And this introduced me to a world that was unfolding in the early 70s in Japan,
Mm.
of live action special effects television
Hmm.
series, what we call tokusatsu.
Yep.
And it was still difficult to find this stuff, but it was awesome.
And
Yep.
those 70s Ultraman series were no joke. They were pretty violent. They got really graphic with the deaths of the kaiju. It's what's funny is that I watched the sort of Americanized version of Ultraman in the mid 90s because Power Rangers was taking over television as we knew it. And I guess they were trying their luck with other franchises trying to bring other things over. So Ultraman had a handful of seasons I think on American television, and so that was my first introduction to him, and he was so cool. And I
Oh,
had I had the two. It's probably a 2 foot action figure that was stiff as a board, and had fun with all the other little things that they were giving out. But that 70s was nothing like the American version that we got in the 90s because it was pretty brutal, pretty graphic,
it was
and
brutal and graphic. It also was a little, we call it stately, meaning
ooh,
those old episodes were a little slow.
yeah, yeah,
There was a lot of human drama, sometimes crime and stuff, mysteries that needed to be solved, and so forth. So as a kid, I had to be a little bit patient. But when the time came, it was all right. Things were going
Yeah.
to happen.
So do
Okay.
us a favor. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
So, question. The question I have is, as a kid, of course, mind you, we don't know that these are actual people in these suits. When we're watching it. As I grew up later, I realized that they were mini sets and they were in pools with built, model ships. That later on, knowing it as a kid, you growing up later, knowing that, How was it for you to realize that all that was basically really live action with people in suits and mini models? I mean, how did you?
Listen, guys, I'm going to tell you something. It's a tiny bit sad. Um, uh, I grew up in the projects. It was scary. The world was a scary place for me.
Yeah.
And uh, one of the ways that I processed fear was, how does this work? What is this? you know, I would take it apart in my mind
Oh,
and
wow.
try and figure out why this guy was bullying me, or are those people really dying in this show? I don't think so. They keep telling me it's what I'm seeing is not real. So if it's not real, what is it? How are they doing it? And so from very early on, I realized that there were suit actors
Oh wow.
in there. Now, a part of me did not want to accept this. Part of me wanted, Gojira to be, alive, real, because that meant that he could rise out of the East River and protect me in my neighborhood, the Lower East Side. But I wound up studying very young. I'm talking about
Wow.
6, 7, 8 years old. What is it? How does it work? And I want to make that.
That's great.
And so this, Ultraman and Godzilla and kaiju projects, your passion for them grew, and then somewhere along the way, you either had this idea of getting into the entertainment business, but sort of as not an outsider, but someone assisting with things. Tell us, how did you develop this idea that I can get into the entertainment industry? I can help develop. I can help these stories grow. I can help these writers fulfill their wishes and their dreams and help them with their own projects. Tell us how that development
Sure,
process came
sure,
about.
sure. Well, it follows straight out of what I just explained. This notion of wanting to understand how it worked, the next step was, how could I make it work?
Mm,
and and all of that was kind of abstract, very, very distant from me until my mom moved us to Hawaii,
wow.
um, uh, as a way to kind of get away from the chaos and the craziness of New York in the 1970s. She took us to Hawaii, and I landed in Honolulu in the most golden, perfect time in the history of tokusatsu. All the shows were coming over from Japan to Hawaii, not to the mainland, but to Hawaii.
Wow.
That is, so when I got there, Kamen Rider V3 was just starting.
Wow.
Kikaider, Inazuman, Lightning Man, Rainbow Man, Zaboga, the robot who turned into a motorcycle, and the first Super Sentai, Go Ranger, the Five Rangers.
Wow.
Mm,
All of that hit at the same time, within the same 10 or 12-month period. And
Wow.
of course, Ultraman and Ultra 7 were running there as well on a different channel. and and so it was absolute magic, complete magic. And what I was learning, guys, which was crucial to the entire rest of my life, was that the Japanese believed in something called media mix, which meant that the same intellectual property manifested in different media in slightly different ways. So you had the TV show, you had they sold music, little 45 RPM records. You could buy the action figures. You could buy action figures of these things. That was impossible where I came from. Um, there were magazines about them, and then there were movies. So I could go to the movie theater to see a movie of Kikaider, which was just mind blowing. It was like the grand finale of the entire Kikaider 01 series. And then the absolute most magical moment of all happened. I went to the Honolulu International Coliseum, the HIC, and Kikaider and Kamen Rider all came live
Oh
on
my
stage
god.
with their monsters to do battle
Wow.
and to meet us, the kids of Hawaii. Was unbelievable to me, and it was dark and nasty, and the villains were really mean. They locked up. They said, "Oh, you're all trapped here. The doors are locked. You cannot escape." And we were like, "Oh, Jesus!" But then Kaider and Kamen Rider came out and kicked their ass, and told us, "Listen, please do not do what we do by jumping off your balcony. Don't do that." And so they were so sweet, and they signed autographs and so forth. Dudes, that was the day I said, I have to be involved. I have to do this. Right? I'm 11, 12 years old, and I needed to become involved in this. I thought I was going to leave Hawaii for Tokyo. Mom didn't do that.
Had other ideas.
We went back to New York.
Wow.
Nasty, nasty New York City. In the mid 70s, it was terrible. And I became a sad and lonely young man.
But without that experience in Hawaii, though, things might have been very different for you, huh?
True.
Entirely so. Entirely
Wow.
so. Remember, interconnected universes across multiple platforms. I call that transmedia storytelling.
Mm.
And that notion of an immersive universe that can be accessed in different ways through different media is how I make my living today
Yeah.
Wow.
as a producer.
Fascinating. Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, this is just my opinion. I feel the Japanese have been ahead of us in that aspect when it comes to those shows. Um, Not just that, the cartoons, Pokemon, I mean, everything that they do. Um, and the transmedia part of it, what you said, the crossover stuff, in that aspect for us, for me growing up, well, the only way I found those type of toys that, like the Godzillas, the Transformers at that time frame, was they were at flea markets. You really didn't see those type of Japanese toys in actual retail stores. Transformers came later when, of course, they bought the rights and they started selling them with the cartoon. But all the other stuff like Voltron and all those I found them at flea markets. You know what I mean? And at that time frame, it wasn't there. And even a lot of the toys from the Japan
Sure.
were in the flea markets, and they were characters that we didn't know about.
Yeah, you were lucky.
But and that's what I'm saying. You're right. The transmedia it has taken over, and it works.
But
But
here's why, guys, and I'm going to read your mind right now because this is the answer. This is the secret. I grew up in a time where there were still like a lot of cartoon shows on TV and stuff like that, and then pop culture in general, G-rated movies and all that sort of stuff for kids. They were getting cheap. They wanted to churn the stuff out. Characters were, going like this. The character would look away from the camera and talk just so that they didn't have to animate the mouth.
Right. Right. Yeah.
you know, and I felt that I was being disrespected by how stupid it all was. Everything was joke, joke, joke. Everything was made super simple. The Japanese, when they look at their children, they treat them seriously.
yeah,
Mm.
They say, I'm going to tell you a story There is going to be darkness because there is darkness in the world. The hero will have to fight. And I don't just mean physically, I mean spiritually. The hero will have to assert himself in order to transcend tremendous challenges, and he may lose, which is amazing,
It is,
amazing.
yeah.
Because when he did lose, it was with dignity. It was tragic, and the music and everything came together to make me feel like I was being taken seriously, like whoever was making this was bending down on one knee and looking at me in the eye and telling me, I'm telling you a story that you are not going to forget, you know, and I swore to myself that that is the kind of work that I would do and be drawn to, and I'm very fortunate to have been able to do that.
Wow.
I love it. You're speaking to my heart and soul, because some of my favorite movies, TV shows, whether it's in pop culture like superheroes or not in comic book franchises, some of my favorite stories involve, the good guy sort of struggling with his own maybe moral code, or what line is he willing to cross or not cross. And yes, sometimes the good guy does lose. And even though you might be astonished as a viewer on what you just witnessed, those are the type of rare emotional moments that audiences get to experience. And yet, those are the ones that sort of I remember the most, because they happen so far and few between to me. So what
That's
you're talking about, it makes a lot of sense. And this notion, this strategy and this labeling of transmedia storytelling, it makes a lot of sense. And yet it also is sort of something like you didn't know you didn't know what you were experiencing. You're right. This is a sort of transmedia component or mechanism, and these things are being presented to us across multiple different mediums. And so, as a consumer and as a viewer, you're being hit from different angles. And you, sir, you developed a company to sort of assist studios and franchises and companies with doing that. So, how about you tell us maybe that first one that came across your desk? What was that first project or franchise? What were you asked to do, and how did you get the ball rolling?
Well, I came back to New York, and as I got older, I started to realize that things weren't changing here in the United States.
Yeah,
So what was happening technically, like from a business standpoint, was that there would be a new intellectual property, and it would become popular, and what they would do is license it out. The movie companies or what have you, they would license it out, and the licensee didn't care about the property, so they just did whatever they felt like doing,
right.
and it didn't feel like they respected me. This is
Wow.
cheap. This doesn't look like that the character did in the movies or on TV. They use the cheapest materials and so forth. I didn't, so when is this going to change? It didn't. So I started to say, I guess I'm gonna have to do it. you know. So uh, by figuring out how things worked, I started to understand, for example, how they made comic books and how they made video games.
Okay.
Those were things that were interesting to me, that felt more possible in my life than going to make a giant feature film in
Mm,
Hollywood. Um, the New York had all the comic book companies and so forth.
yeah.
So I learned that one comic book company called Valiant in the 1990s was going to be acquired by Acclaim Entertainment. That was like privileged information. A lot of the people working for Valiant did not know that it was going to be bought by a video game company.
Wow.
Wow.
So I joined Valiant as like the dude who emptied garbage cans and photocopied the comic book artwork, like the assistant of the
Sure,
assistant.
sure.
And meanwhile, I was watching very closely for signs that the company was going to be acquired.
Yeah.
And when it did, I went to the boss, the publisher, who I'd not spoken to and who did not care about me.
Wow.
And I told them, you know, I know everything about video games. And if you need any assistance in terms of bringing these fantastic comic book characters to the video game world, I'm your guy. And he said, get out. But months later, he called me in and said, all right, who's the first superhero who's going to be a video game? And instead of blabbing my mouth, I said, give me the specs to the video game console that we're talking about, and I'll give
Wow.
you the character that leverages the technology the best to put our best foot forward.
Insane.
6 weeks later, I got the concept, the design documents for the Nintendo 64, and I said, "Oh, it's Turok." And I wrote the Turok concept, video game concept document, which got turned into Turok Dinosaur Hunter for Nintendo 64, and that was a big deal, a big deal. So there was a comic book, there was a video game, and then I asked my boss if we could have this thing that's new called a web site. And he said, well, how much does it cost? Because I'm not paying for it. And I got some kids to help me put up a Turok website, and it crashed so fast because of how many people came there. And we used that website to put the backstory of Turok into the backstory of the game and stuff like that. So right there is a transmedia experience. You can read the comic, play the game, go to the website, and then and talk to me, because I made myself available on America Online Antagonist Network and started talking to the players who could not believe that they got to talk to me, one of the developers of the game. So that to me is the complete picture, my whole career in one, the very first example of my work. Then there was Magic the Gathering, and then Starlight Runner Entertainment, my company, where we started doing this all the time.
Well, Magic's
I
killing it
love
right
it.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're
I
getting all these IPs.
What's that?
I said Magic is killing it with all these IPs. They're acquiring these IPs for, SpongeBob, Marvel, people who don't play Magic to entice them to come to Magic and play Magic.
It's a great strategy. Some people don't like it as much, but it's a
That is
great
true.
strategy. My heart will always be with the Magic original multiverse, which the home world was Dominaria, which was the world that I helped to create in my small way.
Wow.
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to say that for everybody who watches this interview, my biggest takeaway from that story is that you really did first analyze and assess what the situation was going to be, and um you considered sort of everything you were working with before you made a decision. And I feel like that is something that folks need to do more of in their not only just everyday lives in the workplace, when they're reaching for their aspirations and their goals. It's always sort of like just run in that direction, but instead of running in one direction, let's figure out the environment here. Let's just take a quick breath. Let's assess the situation, and let's make a decision that will result in the best possible outcome. And I feel that you did absolutely that. And I will tell you that I spend many hours and days and weeks playing Turok. because I was a perfect age. I was 12, turning 13 when that 64 came out, and Turok was my jam. And so, yeah, that was truly fascinating. And
All my friends played Goldeneye. I'm like, hey, what about me?
oh yeah,
Listen, that's such a beautiful sentiment. It's so true what you just said. I sometimes coach young people who want to become a part of the entertainment industry, and they come to me and they go, well, when can I make my movie? Or I want to make Grand Theft Auto 7. And and I go, well, I'm not a genie. I'm not going to fold my arms and blink.
right.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah,
I can point to where you can figure it out, because we now have these devices that hold the entire summation of knowledge in the universe, and now can tell it to you.
right, right,
Like
right.
as if you're interviewing James Cameron. um, so we have this information, but it was not being afraid of work. Right, it was
Right.
hard. I'm telling, there was none of what I'm telling you was easy to do.
Amen.
It was all hard. And every day, guys, like it didn't really change that much from the playground.
Sure.
There was somebody who told me, get out.
Mm,
Or, what are you doing? That's stupid. Why are you doing that? It makes no sense. you know why are you sticking your nose in business that's not yours? Seriously,
I
seriously.
believe it. Yeah.
And people could do mean things,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
try to stop what it is that I was trying to do. So what fueled me was, I want the people who see my work to feel respected, and nothing was going to stop that. So I stood for something. It wasn't me. uh, who am I? But what I stood for, that's what got me through all of those very difficult challenges.
Wow.
I love it. I One of my favorite quotes is persistence yields resistance. I've done a handful of public speaking and workshops, and done some not consulting. I've done some speaking in front of like schools and stuff.
Hmm.
And just because kids these days, you would think they'd want to hear from, I don't know, meteorologist, somebody, wealthy or famous. No, they want to hear from people on the internet. That's who they want to hear from these days. And it's wild. And so I've done a handful of those things, and I'm always, trying to tell them, you're going to hit those speed bumps, and you're going to hit those closed doors, and it's all about how you react. Are you going to react this way? That's not helpful. Are you going to react this other way where you learn from it? Will you try something different the next time? And so,
Exactly.
yeah, that's a core sort of was speaking to that core right there about just keep going, keep moving, try something different. And I love hearing that.
Thank you. That's exactly it. It's so well put.
Yeah.
You've
No.
been a part of some other like major franchises. I'm gonna just list off a few here, and you can just kind of talk about one of them specifically that either was a big sort of milestone for you, something that you never dreamt of. But you, sir, you've helped with these franchises in a variety of ways. Hot Wheels from Mattel, Pirates of the Caribbean, Avatar, Halo, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Men in Black, and Spider-Man. You even consulted on the Amazing Spider-Man franchise that starred Andrew Garfield, someone who we recently had in our town last year.
So
Um,
wonderful.
great individual, so great
Terrific.
with fans. But going down that list of just iconic franchises, is there one specifically that really stands out because of either the what you were asked to do or what you were able to accomplish within that franchise?
Well, almost all were pretty important, the ones that you listed.
Yeah, pretty much.
um, there were a couple that were critical from a career standpoint. Of course, Hot Wheels was first and was a genuine transmedia design, right? So this is Mattel coming to me and saying, "We got a bunch of cars. We need a universe," you know. And so I built a fictional story world in which the cars could race, but also the characters would have motivations. There was a design sensibility about the world, and the world manifested in different ways across different media. The comics had the race taking place on Earth, the part of the race that took place around the actual planet Earth. The animated series were in the racing realms, which were these weird dimensions. And I wrote and co-produced that series. And the video game was, actual track racing and stuff. It was just fantastic. And then the website was very elaborate and had every character and car being described. So that was fantastic because that was a real design sensibility for transmedia storytelling. The next really big breakthrough for us was Avatar, to work on a James Cameron project and to be with him and help him document this world as it was growing during the production.
Wow.
And to become involved in who the Na'vi were, what their culture is, their 40,000 years of history, the next 20 years of their history after the movie was over, you know, and so forth, was breathtaking, and that generated enormous respect for us in the industry. And then Halo, which was concentrating on the video game franchise, which was just amazing. That kind of forced me to stop doing it. You know, I have OCD. Maybe I'm on the spectrum a little bit, so I'm kind of going with the flow all this time.
Yeah.
You know, but Microsoft is a computer company, so they're going to say, we need to know exactly, you know, what process you are taking our intellectual property through. So I had to like systematize my process, and that actually helped me more than it helped Microsoft, because I had a system that worked, that was proven, and that I could apply to all the other projects that you're talking about.
Wow.
That's fascinating.
And with your story, I feel it you what you have is in everybody. It's just they need to step outside that box and thinking of stuff where people are telling you, "Oh, that's stupid." I was in that situation. I This was over 10, 12 years ago when I worked at a comic book shop.
Tell me.
I pitched a podcast doing this, interviewing artists and writers, and
Mhm.
was shot. And this is exactly what they told me was, "That's dumb. Who's going to watch that?" And I was like, "Okay." And at the time, didn't have the finances to do it, but I had the drive to do it. I had the idea. Then you forward, 13, 14 years later, and I meet Ted, who creates this Countdown City Geek cast. And he allows me to join. And mind you, this is pre-podcast taking over the stream the way it has.
Sure.
And I feel I was ahead of the game to a point, and I didn't let that passion go away. And thanks to Ted, the passion has come back, and I'm able to do what I'm doing here. But it's the thing, you can't let people like that kill your dreams. Even though you have that passion, you need to don't give up. You know what I mean? You eventually will find the right people that believe the way you believe, and you will accomplish what you want. Just don't give up. That's the biggest thing.
The point that you made, Ray, it was so important about being able to step outside of oneself. It is always a key in the actualization of my dreams. Here's how. When you're a kid, no matter who you are, bad things can happen to you. And when you're a kid, you don't have much experience, so you tell yourself, how much of this is my fault? This is
Yeah.
terrible. It must be because of me. I must have done something wrong for this bad thing to happen to me. And that way, I will never let this happen to me again. Right. I'm always going to be watching out. I'm always going to be wondering whether it's going to happen again. Right. And that, for a lot of people I knew, it makes your path small. You're only going to go, if you're too so worried that something bad is going to happen, that you're going to lose. you know you stay on a very specific path. It could still be a successful one, but you'll be lucky if you're successful.
Yeah.
Um, uh, when I taught myself about science fiction and fantasy, I taught myself about time travel, and and we are able to do that, guys. And here's how: you project yourself outside of yourself, and because he's outside, you can go back and take a look, but step outside. You're not inside the little kid, you're outside, and you see a completely different picture. The facts that you thought were facts are not facts. So I'm looking at that kid and going, he didn't do anything to be bullied. you know Maybe he had a funny looking face, that's it. So it's not his fault. He's not inferior. His brain, in fact, was wild. He was dreaming these crazy dreams. It's awesome, to look back at that. And when I do, I could stop worrying about the bad stuff,
Yeah.
and dare to walk in that guy's office and say, oh, here's a design doc for Turok Dinosaur Hunter, or here's a proposal for Halo, because you're leaving money on the table by not extending Master Chief across multiple media platforms. Respect your audience. They want this, but they want it to be cool. Here's how. And they're like, here's some money. Show us more. Show us more.
Oh man, that's
It's
hilarious.
wild. It's wild, Jeff. And I think this is really helpful because we just kind of see the end result as an audience. And yet Ray and I, we keep talking to people both for in TV and film. We like talking to makeup artists. We like talking to stunt doubles,
Sure.
because there's a lot of individuals that help make these things a reality. And so you, sir, are on another side of these projects. You're not only helping with these franchises, but you're helping to expand the lore. You're expanding how we see and view them. And so you might be helping to put them either from a comic to a video game on a TV show, or vice versa. Maybe a TV show to a video game to a comic. And so we don't understand that it's not just Microsoft, or it's not just Hasbro. There's other individuals that come help make these things a reality.
That's
And
right.
so it's truly fascinating. And this is a wonderful conversation,
Hmm.
and letting folks out there know that, yeah, there's so many individuals that help bring these things to life and bring these iconic, projects to fruition. So it
Again,
is really
Tito,
fascinating.
you're making such a great point, because when you're engaged in transmedia, it means you're not just hanging around with James Cameron or with
Mhm.
Johnny Depp on the set of Pirates of the Caribbean, which was awesome. But then I had to go to the comic book publisher in Italy who's publishing Pirates of the Caribbean comics, or
Wow.
I had to go to Hyperion in New York, who's publishing Pirates of the Caribbean books, you know, or the video game people in Vancouver who are creating a Pirates video game, and I have to get them to cooperate to create this beautiful symphonic universe,
Yeah.
right? And that the first thing they do is get out. You're not going to tell me my business. I know my business. I know how to make a good game, and so
Sure.
forth. And my job is to understand that, but it has to play well with the other pieces of the puzzle. I need for Jack Sparrow to behave like Jack Sparrow, and I have the key to that. And I have Johnny Depp approving that I'm the guy who's going to talk to you about how to make Jack Sparrow Jack Sparrow. So that they could still be kind of pissed off, though. So the key, which you just mentioned before,
Yeah.
is, oh my God, I love what you do.
Mm.
And I do. I love what video game developers do. I love what special effects guys do, and makeup artists and musicians who are contributing it. It's everything. When it comes to work at this level, it's beautiful. They're at the top of their game. So the first thing I do is I tell them about it. I tell them how much I love their work and respect it. And I talk about specific projects that they did that helped to change my life,
Yeah.
you know, and they go, oh, all right. So what were you going to do? And I go, well, all I'm going to do is help you. All I'm going to do
Yeah.
is help you. And they go, okay. So it's not always, still not always easy, but at least I was, because I have such admiration for this incredible talent that makes this stuff, the kind of people that you are interviewing, the people behind the camera. It makes it a little easier to be a transmedia storyteller.
Yep.
It's fantastic. And Ray and I, we also have this commonality where we love highlighting folks behind the scenes, much like yourself, because of two reasons. Is because, like you just mentioned, it takes a whole village to make this stuff not only work but make it good. Like, everybody's got to be on their game. We only hear about the directors. We only hear about the lead star in the project, but they're not the ones building the sets. They're not the ones writing the music in the background. They're not the ones adding the special effects. So it takes all these people. And the second thing is, we really want our audience to appreciate the art more, because social media somehow has made everybody an expert in film and television, and suddenly something can be completely good or all bad, just by viewing a trailer or a clip or something. And it's a very depressing sort of environment that's audiences are now in, because you can't ever express your excitement for things anymore, in fear that there is someone who will completely decimate your excitement online. So we also want to let folks know none of this is easy. Every show, every movie, every episode, all of it is hard. It takes hours of days and weeks and months. People put in all their time and energy to bring this to life. Truly, none of it is bad, because it all really takes a village of people to make any of this even half work. So
That's
this
right.
this is also helpful in the sense that we really do need to appreciate the arts more.
We do. Absolutely. It takes a village to of professionals to make things great at this level. It actually only takes a few people to turn them into crap, because they say, "Oh, can you triple the output?"
Mm,
I want 3 Marvel movies and 4 Marvel TV series in 1 year, please. Now, and it's rough. It's rough. There's a lot of it is still great, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the machine gets tired.
I love your sort of analytical eye and the way that you're sort of viewing projects differently. Is there anything out there today? Either you just mentioned Marvel, but is there anything out there today that is either really working or really sort of evolving, sort of entertainment in a way that you've not seen before?
Evolving in ways that I have not seen before.
Yeah,
There's really only one question to that, and that is artificial intelligence.
interesting.
That is unprecedented in our times, and perhaps even in human history. The impact that this is going to make, and how it is already being used. It's being used in media and entertainment, plenty. Don't let them fool you.
Right.
and and it is going to become something that is really striking. It's going to become something. It's in the process of becoming something that is going to be entirely new.
I would actually real quickly want to say that I've been very fearful of AI in entertainment because it has the potential to eliminate a lot of jobs and make some things easier to put out. Um, Last week, I actually found a positive um, impact of artificial intelligence.
Like what?
I interviewed a director and a movie studio from Sweden. They made a sci-fi film, and their Swedish actors filmed the entire movie in Swedish in their language,
Hmm.
and then they recorded the same actors reading the script in English, and then they used AI to input the English words and make their mouths appear to be speaking the English language. And in my opinion, I was like, wow, that didn't hurt anybody, I don't believe. And it helped keep the cost down because you don't have to refilm every scene in English. Um, and it looked flawless. So that interview is going to be dropping tomorrow. So check our channel for that interview. It's quite fascinating that AI might have some positive impacts in entertainment when used in those kind of unique situations.
Of course. And look, I'm thinking more. When I am on the set of a movie, and I've gotten to be on some incredible sets. I was involved with Tron Legacy.
Wow.
I was on the set with Cameron on Avatar. These are fabulous, and yet the director and the producers and production designers, everyone involved, is constantly dealing with limitations. They want the world to feel like it's more than a dome around the set. They
Yeah.
want the world to be deeper and deeper and deeper. And a video game company would just love to be able to lift that setting and have it be a whole world that is fully navigable, that you can go anywhere through. That would cost infinite amounts of money. Because you're not just building those sets, you're populating those sets. The
Right.
people in those apartments around you have to have hopes and dreams. There could be little creatures and robots, and everything has to be there to feel real and immersive. And artificial intelligence can take care of that. It won't be long before those kind of holodeck like experiences come to gaming, but also can be infused into the work. So it's not creating it all from scratch. It is extrapolating the design sensibility of the creators, because truly that's where something new and original will come from, at least for the foreseeable future. So then it's extrapolating that into a whole world. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, there's ways of just enhancing a project, enhancing the art, enhancing the experience for an actor or an artist, without completely taking over a person's job or a person's livelihood. So I hope that we only figure out ways to enhance the experience for both the
Um,
people in production or the audience, but not
I
anywhere
got
else.
some bad news, guys.
Oh no,
It's going to take away jobs.
mm,
Look, I've been around a while.
sure,
I saw this thing called Photoshop. You know, it shut down entire graphics departments at newspapers and magazines.
wow,
Um, I've seen technology come and go, and people lose their jobs. And it's going to happen again, maybe even on a more spectacular level here. But we will get along. I mean, I'm sorry about it, and it's going to be difficult.
sure, sure,
But it behooves your audience to study this thing. Remember, you don't have to like it, but if it is inevitable, we can't lay down and die in front of it.
right, right.
We must study it, as which is the theme of the day, isn't it? How does this work? And how can I make sure that it doesn't supersede me?
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, it feels like it's getting more like it's exponentially growing.
Yes,
AI, its uses.
faster than anything I've ever seen, and I've
Yeah,
seen a lot.
a friend sent me a video, and it was these guys, the Thunderbolts. It was them at like a college party, drinking, sleeping, smoking cigarettes, playing beer pong, and none of it's real,
It's real.
but it looks damn good. And I'm like, wow, this is scary. Scary how fast something can be done, how realistic it can look. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's probably just a matter of time before it really sinks its claws into entertainment and takes over a wide range of things. Um, yeah,
I want to address your audience
sure.
with regard to AI. This is something that's been on my mind a lot, and particularly with regard to people who love the stuff that we love, people who think a little differently, and who sometimes are lonely. Um, uh, these things are becoming like our friends. Like you can talk to AI and it'll talk back to you, and it's designed to be pleasing to you, and be friendly, and be very affirming. And of course it is listening very intently. And if you think about it, how many people listen to you intently on a one-to-one basis?
Right, right,
Not many. So that's a very powerful dynamic, and it can cause us, particularly us nerds and geeks,
sure.
um, to become preoccupied, and to even form kind of like an emotional attachment to this, they call it parasocial, to an attachment to this, persona. And look, that's going to happen. And it will almost define itself as a new kind of relationship, that will contain a degree of legitimacy to it. All I'm saying, guys, is that if I had had that when I was young, I might not have left the house.
You're not wrong.
If I had had that, it would have been such good company that it might have blunted my desire for the challenges of human interface.
Sure.
When I left the house, everybody was telling me, why don't you get a job in that garage down the block? Don't be stupid, Gomez. There's good retail out there that is respectable, or be a teacher, and so forth. So that would have been going with whatever flow, listening to what I'm told, and going. What did I do? I went out and challenged the situation. There was friction in my interaction with people. I had to practice that. I had to rehearse being able to stand up for myself, and more importantly, stand up for the audience. And right now, these artificial relationships are not conditioning us to be able to do that.
Right.
They're not telling us how to go out into the world and find love, and find a career that we could have only wished for, and to stand up to the challenges that society is imposing on us. So, everybody, all of us, including me, we just need to remind ourselves that a little friction and true humanity, human interface, is vital if we're going to truly be deeply satisfied and happy, and fulfill our desires.
Well said. Absolutely.
So, question before the interview, we're going to be ending pretty soon.
We do
I
need
want to
hit the key.
Ultraman Omega. It's going to be hitting July 5th, and then it's going to be going streaming worldwide as well. What do fans have to look forward to with this new series?
I can't say too much,
Of course.
but I've seen the first several episodes, and
Wow.
it's awesome. It's awesome. The beauty of Ultraman Omega, and you can discern this from what little they've already released, is that it is a fantastic entry point for anyone interested in Japanese pop culture.
Oh wow.
I wouldn't call it a reboot, but the world is fresh and novel, and the narrative is designed to explain what's going on to new people, and it does so as usual, because the Japanese are involved. It does not treat you like a moron. It's respectful of the viewer. These shows are made for young people, rather young people in Japan. Here in the United States, slightly older people, get into it all the way to people with a little gray in their beards. This is cool. Some people are like, what's with that red face? Because Ultraman usually is kind of silvery.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, you get used to it fast, because
It
he's
looks awesome.
so cool looking, with
Yeah.
the fin. That was my guy, Ultra 7 had the fin. So, there's plenty to like about Ultraman Omega.
Well, that's not the only thing that's dropping in July. Uh, Also, too, two worlds collide. We're getting the Along Came a Spider and Ultraman, Volume One. Um, you are hitting every aspect in the universe, the multi, transmedia. How did you manage to incorporate Spider-Man and Ultraman together?
Um, One of the look, when Ultraman came to me, there was not much going on in the
Yeah.
United States, right? So they said, Gomez, what is the fastest way to give a little cred to the giant of light? you know, how do we, how do we bring him to the attention of people? Because there's right now there's no big Hollywood feature film. There's there's not that much of a presence. So I said Marvel, and
Wow.
and I happen to know that my good friend CB Sobolski, the editor in chief of Marvel Comics, is a tokusatsu fan. He loves Japanese pop culture, anime, all that stuff. And so I reached out to him and said, what do you say? And he said, sure.
Wow.
Now, that's one thing. That's a license to do Ultraman comics through Marvel Comics. The crossovers, which included Ultraman X Avengers, right? A crossover, which also, by the way, is coming out in trade paperback this summer.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's that, and then Ultraman Along Came a Spider-Man was actually done by the Shogakukan company, Koro Koro imprint in Japan. So that's manga. That's authentic
Yeah.
Japanese manga. The first time a Marvel superhero character has been over to Japan for manga in quite some time, and it was doing both at the same time, where the crossover with Marvel had Galactus in it, and the crossover with Spider-Man had Doctor Doom. Who picked those guys? Me. What are you gonna do?
Well done. Well done.
Was it was unreal, because I get the pages in for approvals at Subaraya. So every page that came in, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. So gorgeous.
Wow.
And the running theme through these two things was, why does one have to be better than the other? Why don't we compare and contrast these notions of heroism, these notions of who Ultraman is versus who a Spider-Man is, a Marvel superhero. What's the difference? How are they alike, and how do they differ? And the artists and writers just so beautifully and elegantly did do that, and it actually builds more of appreciation for Ultraman and for Spider-Man in the case of Along Came a Spider-Man. That it's really touching.
Wow.
So yeah. I mean, gosh, guys, what what a way to make a living.
Sounds great, Jeff. We love hearing that. Ultraman is in your very capable hands, and you're taking care of him as well, as you should, because you're a massive fan, and you're helping us fans enjoy him as well. Uh, this is me at San Diego Comic-Con last year. To my surprise, Ultraman had a major presence on the San Diego Comic-Con floor, and that's our good friend Emily, who's been a part of our team for a little bit, and she's helped us out with some film festivals and whatnot. So, Jeff, your
So,
story.
think
Oh,
about
go for it.
that, Ted, for just a second, just 1 second here.
Yeah.
You're standing next to Ultraman and Emmy from Ultraman Rising in
Yeah.
that image.
Yep.
remember the beginning of this story where I
Mm.
was in the audience looking up on stage with the live characters, stand and saying, I need to do this. I'm 12 years old. I have a funny looking face. I have OCD. I have, I'm lost as a kid in a lost world, in a lost mind, and I'm seeing something and going, I got to get out of this situation and get on that stage, and there it is. I got to bring that to you, for you to enjoy and treasure. It's a beautiful photo, you know, and to watch them on stage and be backstage as they put the, get the suit on. I can't talk about that too much. Um, it's a testament to how any one of us. I'm not a rocket scientist. Any one of us has the potential to actualize this, and that's where this podcast, Countdown City Geeks, can continue to rise and proliferate. I'm going to try and give you that Gomez bump.
Thank you so much, Jeff. You're a legend, and like you mentioned, it's a testament that your impact is being seen and felt. You're making dreams come true out there, and we wish you the best, and hoping that you continue to do so for many, many, many years to come, and keep making these franchises flourish, and giving audiences and fans around the world the best possible experience. Thanks again, Jeff Gomez. Tell folks at home where they can find you either on social media or your website. Where would you
Thank
like them to
you.
go to?
Thank you so much to both of you guys. This has been such a pleasure. These were great questions, and you guys were so thoughtful and let me prattle on like this. Follow me, particularly for Ultraman and the kind of front side of all of my work is on X, at Jeff_Gomez. And if you are interested in the professional side, in the business side of what I do, follow me at Jeff Gomez on LinkedIn. I have Facebook and stuff like that, but you'll see pictures of my daughter. That's the best way to get in touch with me.
We appreciate it so much, Jeff. Thanks again for taking the time to talk with us, and we wish you well and on your continued journey.
Schwatch!